Greetings, gentle viewers! End of season, so let's kids film this shit up! And what better choice than a mid-80s meta-claymation about magic Mark Twain going on a zany adventure with his own characters and interacting with his stories. Well, yes, Mum and Dad saved the world, but that's for another season. Now, before we begin, even though his real name was Samuel Clemens, I'm going to call him Twain. Partly to save time, and partly because that's what everyone knows him by, but mainly because that's what the film thinks his name is. We open with a crawl explaining Twain's relationship with Halley's Comet, and I like that the film is starting out celebrating Twain by forcing the audience to read. Something that I'll honour by not telling you what's in said crawl, so you have to read it yourself. Literature, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the USS Very Fucking Unlikely. Its continuing mission to be a paddle steamer in space. This is Twain's literal spaceship. It's like the TARDIS, but it's probably the same size on the inside, which almost makes it more impressive. Okay, how the fuck is he expected to do his writing if he floods the fucking ship every time he opens a book? Will another one turn the fucking ship into a desert to evaporate the water? If so, they're fucked because the other books have melted. How much water does that book even contain? And now is when having the ship be bigger on the inside would come in handy. Why can the water turn shit into sea life? If Twain had been reading the book, would he have been turned into a catfish man like at the end of A Sound of Thunder? And I have a lot more questions, but this is the most important one. Why does Mark Twain have a copy of a book called The Adventures of Mark Twain? Is his memory going, or is it a Donald Trump level of self-obsession?
It all started one day after Tom heard about Becky Thatcher going down to see St. Louis with the judge.
And from the devastation wrought by Twain's book comes Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn on a boat and talking about pre-living the plot to Fight Club.
Time is slipping away and I'm getting older and older, Huck. There's no wars breaking out.
We're the middle children of history, man.
No continents to explore.
We have no Great War, no Great Depression.
No way a man could make a name for himself.
We're slowly learning that fact. And we're very, very pissed off.
Their rival, Becky Thatcher, is off in St. Louis seeing a balloon, and they're tired of waiting around for feminism to be invented so they can rail against it, so they decide to go and fuck up her balloon seeing fun.
Full steam ahead!
And afterwards, maybe she'll kick them in their manospheres. The 19th century was a weird time. Kids would randomly go off on adventures without even informing their parents, and yet more of them died of lung cancer than being raped and left to bleed out in a meticulously animated ditch. That frog's face has two looks. Seen some shit and resting toad face. The balloon Becky Thatcher went to see is Mark Twain's magic space balloon, which means this whole film just got even more fractal because this whole world, including Twain and his balloon, was inside a book written by Twain sitting on a table on Twain's spaceship. Now I'm wondering if the only difference between the layers of recursive reality is the exact shape of Mark Twain's spacecraft. If there's enough of them, maybe one will literally be the TARDIS. Anyway, Twain appears to be planning space balloon suicide.
I came in with Halley's Comet in 1835, and I expect to go out with it. Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
You know, these 1910 yokels seem to be a little too blasé about meeting a celebrity and hearing of his plans to become the first claymation figure to die in space. I'm thinking they're just assuming they're hallucinating due to heat stroke. So all three of the kids have stowed away. Of course, Twain knows this because he wrote them and everyone else in this film.
Boys, Tom, Huck.
Hey, Tom, Huck, where's Jim? Well, Mr. Twain, we left you in the real 1910 because you're not allowed to use that word anymore. Really? You can't say Jim anymore? That's ridiculous. Political correctness gone mad. Next we tell me I can't say
Mark Twain!
And Becky Thatcher.
How do you know our name?
Hello, my angelfish.
You have no idea what sort of unpublished stuff I wrote about you all night long. Mr. Twain, you're kind of freaking me out. Anyway, Twain is so secure in his de facto godhood that he's named the ship after himself. Which is so self-obsessed that not even I would do it, and I am literally God. Seriously, does he stamp his name on everything he can?
This is mine, that's mine, all this is mine. I'm claiming all of this as mine. Except for that bit. I don't want that bit. Hey, this has been a good day. I've eaten 5 times, I've slept 6 times, and I've made a lot of things mine.
He's probably even tattooed his name on his cock so he can get off just watching it grow.
How are we gonna get back down?
Down is not our destination, my boy.
It's Becky's. Please stop, Mr. Twain. I know you base me on your dead wife, but I will jump.
Down is not a destination, my boy.
Well, that's officially a kidnapping then. You know, according to the book, these kids were about 12 in 1875. Well, with all this Bioshock, the early years shit going on, I don't think this is actually 1910.
Now we cross the Atlantic.
And infect Madagascar, otherwise our necrovirus won't be able to finish off the human race. Anyway, Twain starts on the first of many stories based on his work.
Well, I'll tell you all about him, just as it was told to me.
Gather round, children. This is what I like to call a framing device. The first story is about a grizzled 1860s prospector that's a stiff breeze away from becoming a hang glider who ran out of gold, and naturally decided to educate a frog.
Of course!
All a frog once is educating.
Times were simple then. People did things to keep themselves from going mad with boredom. Anyway, 3 months later, he managed to teach a frog to jump. To celebrate this achievement, he's going to have his frog raced against one owned by this guy with a coal scuttle for a mustache.
I ain't got no frog.
Oh, sorry, a frog not owned by this guy with a coal scuttle for a mustache. But not having a frog isn't a reason to not have a frog race. Actually, that's the best reason to not have a frog race. It's even better than it's fucking stupid to race frogs, you fucking moron! Anyway, the prospector goes off to get him a frog to race because it's about honour now. And it's a race between two disabled frogs, this random one who can't even choose a fucking direction to hop in, and the prospector's one that can't even move. The random frog wins the race because when the prospector was off finding a frog for Coal Scuttle Mustache, the guy force-fed a comical amount of equipment that somehow no one noticed down his frog's throat. The moral of the story is if you meet someone from the 1860s, you should beat them to death with a fucking frog and improve both species.
Shucks, I could write a better story than that one.
Normally I'd agree, but Tom, every thought you've ever had or will have outside of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen was written by Twain. And you didn't think in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, so every thought you've ever had was written by him. So no, you can't write a better story than him.
There she is.
How come you want to catch that comet so bad, Mr. Twain?
Shut the fuck up, little orphan Annie. I'm trying to look forward to my death. And think about you naked. With a certain antebellum dignity.
Here, set your eyes on this celestial schooner.
This isn't like the last long thing you put in my face, is it, Mr. Twain? Will this at least smell better?
Ooh.
He's coming right at us!
But look at those clouds. They're flying through a Rennie Magritte painting, and the comet's a giant apple. Anyway, Tom and Huck are back writing for A Voice for Boys. Article 1, Matt Forney, Great Guy or Greatest Guy. Article 2, How to Get Rid of Girls, Chapter 1, Part 1.
I got a plan. First, we gotta get Becky off. She talks too much. So me and Huck was thinking we should set her down and let Becky off.
There is nothing comparable to the endurance of a woman.
So take that fedora off, you varmint! 1, it's imaginary, and 2, it's a trilby! How dare you!
There is nothing comparable to the endurance of a woman.
Even Becky? Especially Becky, if you know what I'm talking about. Which you don't. So the ship's resident ominous door of obvious peril suddenly appears, and like the stupid people they are,
Come on, let's go investigate.
they discover the table of contents, because meta. It's a lift that'll take them to every story written by Mark Twain, including this one about screaming.
That was close. I don't ever want to meet that guy again.
Kids, you just found out that a guy you previously met was created by Mark Twain. Now's your cue to have an existential nightmare! Or at the very least wonder why Mark Twain stole one of the rooms from the fucking Nautilus.
What's a classic?
Something everybody wants to have read, but nobody wants to read.
Mark Twain was a really clever guy with a great ear for a quote. I once found a book of his 50 best sayings, and they were all brilliant, but that works out to one every 8 months over the course of his writing career. Which I'm pretty sure I could manage too, if I had all the money and riverboats I could eat.
That's my monument to Adam and Eve.
There she goes again.
Thanks.
Am I going to hell now? You know, most films, animated or not, wouldn't have the 75-year-old talk about nudity to the children he controls with his mind.
Naked people have little or no influence in society.
Anyway, it's time for more Twain is God subtext as we see his rewrite of the story of Adam and Eve. And as all good creations start, we begin with God orgasming the universe into existence. In the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was... Oh shit, now I need to invent tissues.
Oh, this is nice. This is good. Oh, what a surprise. Oops. Adam. I just created jizz and I want to show you. This is for you.
God, please. It's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. And at least wake him up first.
Adam.
Oh, better. Besides, you're technically his father, so stop being weird and get to cloning him a girlfriend. All in all, it's a traditional Garden of Eden. There's a space river, a Venus bear trap, a monkey drag queen, a swimming pool, and Adam is like a Jewish Hugh Grant. Oh my God! Why did you put a river over the edge of the world? All in all, I think I prefer Twain's version of the story. Or rather, my version of Twain's version of the story, which is a lot more tits.
This was truly paradise.
If you want a view, paradise.
Simply created in claymation. Anyway, Eve is already around, meaning that Lilith, Adam's first wife created from the same dust as him, has been skipped over. Because they lose valuable minutes explaining A, who she is, and B, that she was kicked out because she literally wanted to be on top of Adam. And that's not just a proto-Jewish feminist thing, even though it totally was. Anyway, no Lilith. And since Eve was already around, that means God must have made her off screen. My guess is it's around the time God realised it was a bad idea to have the river go right over the edge of the fucking world.
We went through 5 Adams before we figured that one out.
It's better not to show Eve's creation anyway. It just raises all sorts of questions that I'd find hilarious. Shit like Adam being violated and forced to reproduce without his consent. Making God some kind of sex offender. And because the Jesus and Mary shit later on, I'm seeing a pattern. Anyway, the raised questions about Adam. The fact that he'll end up fucking somebody's genetically his own sister is a doozy. And that's not even going into the fact that the Bible's God originally wanted Adam to fuck a lion. Also, there is a small issue of Adam turning into a carrot. Anyway, Diane Fosse has been studying this Adam thing in the mist.
I was afraid of it at first, for I thought it was going to chase me.
You know, if you're going to do the whole Bible like this, it'll be sometime next week before we even get to the begats, God being okay with child sacrifice, and lots of enthusiasm for having his daughters raped. Now, is it just me, or does Adam look like he covered his hair in gel and then jammed his head into a wind tunnel to get that shape? This whole section is a series of little stories inside the bigger story. It's good, but it's not really interesting enough to comment on all of it. Except this, of course, because, yo dog, I heard you like gardens, so I put a garden in your Garden of Eden so you can garden while you garden. Yeah, that meme is older than the age of the earth according to creationists, but sue me, I like it.
Mistress, the head of your legal team just left a message. They wish you wouldn't say things like that. People tend to take it a little literally.
Well, they could sue me too!
They said they'll join the back of that very long queue.
Good. Anyway, after trying to hug a reflection in a lake... Yeah, that really happens. Eve tries to convince Adam to make friends with some fish and so brings him back to meet him.
I don't see that they are any happier than they were before. Only quieter.
And when that doesn't work, in a fit of depression, she decides to invent the Disney princess.
So, I made friends with the animals.
This story has been going on for so long, they should rename the film The Adventures of Adam and Eve, featuring Mark Twen, in very small writing. Anyway, Eve is taken to being a scientist, discovering gravity and whatnot, until a serpent arrives to fuck shit up.
Knowledge is not easily come by, but there is a fine adult education course nearby.
1, the serpent probably had legs at this point in the story. 2, according to a bunch of artists in medieval and Renaissance, it was actually a snake-human hybrid. And 3, either way, I'm pretty sure it wasn't Gay Charles. So Eve decides to take the apples from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, because some of the animals are carnivores, and taking the apple will bring death into the world, and that'll make them happy.
I foresee trouble.
And thus ends the reign of the bizarrely immortal plants who can survive being eaten. Of course, maybe plant death exists because the first apple brought Plant Sin into the world by eating himself. Ooh, I'm expecting a Kent Hovind book on this.
Too bad.
Yeah, God, as if this isn't actually your fault, you perfect foresight-having apple tree-locating prick. So yeah, shit gets serious when she bites into the apple. The whole fucking Garden of Eden turns into an evil version of Splash Mountain. Which is exactly as evil as the real Splash Mountain, just drier and with less leftover racism.
Bully, a lightning storm!
All hands on deck, quickly now.
Then they're in the middle of a space lightning storm. In many ways, the worst kind of lightning storm because they don't tend to happen. So if you're stuck in one, you're fucked.
We're gonna crash!
Yeah, into the moon, which will be played by a bunch of cutouts. Oh no, wrong old eccentric white guy with a huge imagination. Hey, Mark Twain's as yet unexplained mysterious double, dressing like Mandrake the Magician, does not give you actual magic powers! Oh no, it's being Mark Twain that gives you actual magical powers! So after a brief but thrilling frog rescue, they managed to come across the USS Event Horizon, which kind of indicates that they're off course for Halley's Comet. And not even Twain's magical double can stop Becky Thatcher from doing a Deanna Troi and driving them into it. Something which Tom and Huck will probably never let anyone forget. They need altitude in space, so of course they release ballast, leaving the magical double to mourn the loss of his claymation Debbie Does Dallas. Psst, Mark, we've
lost valuable time.
And more importantly, valuable porn. The kids are sent below because they're shit at being deckhands. Since Twain didn't write to them to be good deckhands, I feel they're the least to blame for that. The meta-ness of the film briefly reaches dangerous levels as Tom Sawyer finds himself inside the adventures of Tom Sawyer. Luckily, all three kids escape to the much less existentially terrifying story of the mysterious stranger.
Welcome to the mysterious stranger.
AKA cartoon banned from TV, AKA the most disturbing children's animation ever, AKA that thing which is all over YouTube without any context, AKA Mark Twain cuts himself and bleeds his depression and misanthropy all over the fucking page. The kids meet an angel called Satan who amazes them by creating flowers, food, and by finally breathing life into clay figures. The little people live their lives in their new society until Satan murders some of them, then kills the rest during a funeral because he can.
You murdered him!
Now, please, let me just put on my philosophical hat for a moment. That's better. This story is the most obviously maltheistic piece of children's animation I've ever seen. Except for maybe Food Fight. Satan creates life and then destroys it because it bothered him.
How annoying that sound is.
He created flawed life that he knew would annoy him and then destroyed them for annoying him. The figures, the life, were fashioned out of literal and figurative clay. It's sad, disturbing, and easily the best part of the film, but it has a flaw. Satan's not Satan. He's God. This story is Twain's critique of the biblical God. He created this land and people from clay like God did with Eden and Adam. He chose to create them in such a way that they'd inevitably do something that would drive him to destroy them. It's a counterpoint to Adam and Eve earlier on. Flawed creation, fashioned from clay. The only thing missing from the film to move this into really fucking obvious territory is the lack of a Noah story. Oh wait, later on, Twain rants about how God fucked up by saving Noah and his family.
I want to use my influence to have the human race drowned again. This time, drown good. No omission.
Game, set, match. This is the story of human beings looking at the biblical God, but not from the point of view of a creation, but in equal terms and seeing it as a monster. You might not like that term, but I've come across more than a few Christians who say the God they worship could not be considered evil, regardless of his action, because any action he does must be good by definition.
I can do no wrong, for I do not know what it is.
Satan here, like the God of the people I just described, cannot do evil, because he cannot conceive of what it is. But the subtext doesn't end with that. The short story is about God, but the film took the meta up a notch. Twain's dark side, his mysterious double, opens up the door to the mysterious stranger. Twain wrote the stories these characters are from. In this film, on this balloon, on this spaceship, Twain is God. He brings life, he destroys it, and he cannot comprehend what he does to his creations because they are not real. The holy trinity of this film is Twain, Evil Twain, and Satan God. They're all representations of the same thing. The actual, real-life Mark Twain.
Nothing exists save empty space, and you are but a thought.
For a film celebrating Mark Twain, this has quite a negative view of him. Anyway, philosophy over.
I'll just go get that, mistress.
But at least they're not shying away from the man's complexity. And if you think I'm reaching about my interpretation, the story was written near the end of Twain's life, and he was very anti-theistic. It's hilarious, but this short piece of film managed to make a better argument against the morality of the biblical God than every video the Amazing Atheist has, or will ever make. Except maybe that one with the banana, but that was very esoteric. Anyway.
I reckon I'm getting out of here.
I can't tell if this is one of the most racist things I've ever seen or if I should feel sympathetic. I mean, Injun Joe might just be angry that Tom bricked him up in a cave and left him to starve to death. I mean, as I see it, if someone does that to you, you can at least be forgiven for trying to eat them. Anyway, the kids leave Twain's dark double to go listen to the Cure in peace. Though after a night of being unable to sleep because Twain insists on playing the Souls of the Damned, they formulate a plan to hijack the balloon. A plan that'll happen once they inexplicably go from nearing the moon to fucking London in a single fade. Now, possibly I was wrong about their proximity to the moon and them being in space and stuff, but that'd involve me being wrong, so I tend to think that's unlikely. Deep in the bowels of the table of contents, they find a room dedicated to Twain's half-formed thoughts and ideas, including a version of himself who's paid to stand around and yell random quotes without context.
When I get over on the other side, I want to use my influence to have the human race ground again.
Somehow mistake him for the real Twain, they tie him up, but they still haven't worked out that the man's fucking magic.
You look about as disappointed as Presbyterians in hell.
Twain starts on another story about a Captain Stormfield, he with a cock for a head, who arrives in Gaily in heaven.
Well, quick, where are you from?
San Francisco.
You're gonna fit right in. Soon as you get 3 long purple heads attached to some orifices, you'll feel right as rain, honey. It seems that Stormfield, and yes, that is his real name, took a wrong turn after dying and landed in the wrong heaven. The very wrong heaven. There are only so many 1980s club hits an old man can take.
So macho, he's gotta be so macho. He's gotta be big and strong, enough to turn me on.
You know, I begin to see that a man's gotta be in his own heaven to be happy.
Could have been worse. He might have landed in pirate heaven and had to deal with Kirby Hayborn asking him to shiver his timbers. A quick conversation with Adam, Steve, and Jesus sends him off to human heaven, which is really shit by comparison. No poppers, lube, or revolution anywhere.
Heaven for climate, hell for company.
Oh, I dunno, Mark. Someone at Berkeley used the Bible's descriptions of heaven and hell and a bunch of science math to work out their temperatures, and decided that heaven was 525 centigrade and hell was less than 445. Making heaven warmer than hell. Literally. So I'd like to make an edit. Hell for the company, heaven for not having pineapples rammed up your urethra. Unless you're into that sort of thing. But if you are, then they won't let you into heaven, you deviant, and your punishment in hell would be to not have it done. But that's not quite as pithy.
Either way, you gotta die to get there.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
They anchor the balloon to the Sphinx because Egypt by way of space and London is the best way to get to a fucking comet. And this raises extra questions like why did they rebuild the Sphinx's nose in 1910? 700 years after it was destroyed. Truly mysterious. To pass the time, they go back to the story of Adam and his anachronistic bathing suit. Pity there's no magic pomegranates around to fix their anachronistic whiteness. Anyway, years into their relationship, Adam and Eve finally got round to talking to each other.
What is it?
Fire!
Oh, they're going to be really thrilled when baby Cain grows up to found the Brotherhood of Nod. And until then, they're going to have to be satisfied with him attacking his dad with food for looking a bit too much like Ronald Reagan. Part of me wants to know how they invented regular wheels for Cain's toy cart but not invented them for Adam's real one. It's almost as though large trees hadn't evolved yet. Anyway, the rest of me knows that's what the film wants me to do, so instead I'll wonder where the fuck that football came from! And less importantly, where the fuck it's escaping to.
Why do I love him? I guess just because he is a man.
And because I have very low standards. Years later, we find out something that the Bible cut out. That Eve didn't die, but instead ran off and shacked up with Mark Twain. So Eve eventually dies in front of the world's first A&E because no one had thought to invent medicine.
Wherever she was, there was Eden.
Soon after, Adam invented suicide.
I wish I were with my Libby.
But in a pinch, Becky'll do. Mr. Twain, can you at least write me his consenting age? They spent more effort and money on Twain's mustache than some films spent on their whole budget. You can see the depression and regret drooping off his face.
That's really why you want to meet the comet, isn't it?
And I am looking forward to that.
Mr. Twain, what's a death wish? It's a terrible film by Michael Winner. Never watch it. In fact, keep away from anything Michael Winner made, just to be careful. So the much-delayed master plan to take over the ship kicks off. Step 1, wait until you're told you're going to be given the balloon when Twain dies. Step 2, shut off the power while everyone's trapped below, so you're all fucked. And step 3, party like it's 1899 until the balloon crashes, because I'd remind you, they're fucked. Of course they'd be even more fucked if they didn't have a magical frog with them.
All right, Homer, one for accuracy.
By Jings, he did it.
Yay, Homer!
Now!
And do you know why they're so worried? The Sphinx is still buried up to its neck at this point, so all it could possibly do is ask questions at them. And ripping its nose off as they leave is just adding insult to injury. You bastards! It finally got its nose back and you rip it off! The comet's right above them, so they get more altitude by throwing out everything they don't need. I'd have begun with the literal tons of unfinished manuscripts and the demon organ, but that's just me. Huh. High heels. I guess Twain had more in common with Shakespeare than anyone realised.
We are fast rising from affluence to poverty.
And screw any Egyptians who are on the receiving end of the gravity of my situation. Anyway, they finally make it to the comet's tail. Meteor! Mr. Twain, as comets' tails are made of dust and gas, are you sure you didn't take a wrong turn to make it to Alderaan? Nah, it's the comet. It's a fantasy movie. Weird shit like figureheads attacking rocks with swords is gonna happen. I get the feeling that if any of them realised that a million things should be killing them right now, then reality would catch up with them. Not Twain, though. He's busy making the comet his bitch.
Say my name. You're goddamn right.
They make it into the eye of the comet, because those exist now, and they finally explain Twain's mysterious double. It's his dark, melancholy, pessimistic side, the personification of much of his later work.
Everyone is a moon and has a dark side.
Except for Becky. Ding dong. Oh, fuck, now there's two of them. At least this one knows he's evil. Figuring it'd be improper to die without him, they merge, V'ger style, before becoming one with the comet.
Look!
It's James Earl Jones! Twain, being God, leaves them with some final words and gets them home via blowjob. And holy fuck, the comet's still all the clouds! Anyway, the kids decide to write a book about their adventures. A book that won't be published, but maybe, just maybe, might be adapted into a stunning piece of claymation. Oh, wait. The book the film was in was the one that they wrote. Or rather, will write. So that just adds another layer of weird fractal storytelling to the whole thing. It's impressive. Weird, but impressive. This is a brilliant piece of work. It's smart and it marries real love for the material with a craftsmanship that's downright amazing in places. It's one of the most beautiful and honest tributes I've ever seen. Twain is rounded, multifaceted, and the film doesn't shy away from his darker parts. Any writer would be lucky to have a film like this. I live in hope that one day we'll get the adventures of H.P. Lovecraft, where some children have to drag him, screaming at his door and into a tale about Cthulhu, when he'd rather be sat in the dark, playing with his cat and muttering incoherently about the Jews. Or The Adventures of George R.R. Martin, which is a series of instructional videos on medieval execution. This is a phenomenal film. If you haven't seen it, then do yourself a favour and check it out. I'm Diamanda Haggan, and I have to live with it every day.